Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're stepping behind the glamorous runway and peering straight into the global supply chain of an industry that, well, literally, every single one of us interacts with every single day. We're unraveling a mystery that's sitting right there inside your closet. It's an investigation into a system built on staggering speed, hidden algorithms, and a pretty massive invisible toll.
Think about it. This shirt costs you $10. It arrives at your doorstep in a matter of days. It looks exactly like the one that famous influencer wore yesterday. But how is it actually possible to grow the cotton, process the materials, dye the fabric, stitch the whole thing together, package it, and ship it halfway across the entire world for the price of what? A fancy coffee and a sandwich? The math just doesn't seem to add up, right? Well, that's because it doesn't. Someone, somewhere, is aggressively subsidizing that incredibly cheap price tag.
Okay, let's dive right into this with part 1, the ultra-fast AI machine.
To really get a sense of the scale here, we have to look at the hidden technology driving this staggering speed. See, traditional fast fashion brands, think Zara or H&M, they revolutionized the industry by pushing us from 4 traditional seasons a year to 52 micro-seasons, basically a new collection every single week. But now, even that's way too slow. Enter the era of ultra-fast fashion, completely dominated by direct-to-consumer giants like Shein and Temu. They don't even do seasons anymore. They do real-time, machine learning-driven trend scraping. We're not just dealing with fashion anymore. We're dealing with data.
And the numbers behind this? Absolutely wild. 10,000. That is the maximum number of new, unique items a company like Shein can launch in a single day. 10,000. They pulled this off using something called the LATR model. That stands for Large-Scale Automated Test and Reorder. So their algorithms are just constantly scraping social media and search engines, looking for microscopic shifts in what people like. Then they instantly commission a tiny micro order, maybe just a few dozen pieces. If it goes viral, boom, the algorithm automatically triggers massive factory reorders. It is a completely automated, 100% data-driven pipeline.
But wait, how do they actually get all these millions of individual orders out to consumers so incredibly fast? Well, they just skip traditional maritime shipping entirely. Instead, they rely on direct air freight right to your front door. To pull that off, it requires the equivalent of 108 Boeing 777 freighter flights every single day, just to move packages for companies like Shein and Temu. I mean, that's huge. This massive reliance on air transport pushed Shein's annual carbon emissions to 16.7 million metric tons back in 2023. To put that in perspective, that is more pollution than 4 entire coal power plants spewing out exhaust for a whole year.
Which brings us to part 2, stitched with exploitation. Because if an AI algorithm is designing these clothes in literal seconds and cargo planes are flying them around the world, who is actually sitting down and making them?
Well, when we break down the demographics of the roughly 60 million factory workers in the global garment industry, the workforce is overwhelmingly female. We're talking around 75%. And this demographic is unfortunately systematically targeted. Women are frequently pushed into the lowest paid, subordinate roles, like machine operators. And get this, even when performing the exact same tasks as men, women still receive lower wages. It's driven by systemic gender discrimination and this really outdated perception that a female's income is just complementary to a male breadwinner. On top of all that, up to 50% of women in the garment industry have experienced physical or verbal harassment from supervisors.
Just listen to the words of a female apparel worker in India. She said, "Sometimes my girls used to help in our work. We are a very poor family and have no other source of income. When the lockdown was announced, all our orders were suspended and the supplier blocked our payment." Reading that really humanizes the raw data. It shows us that when multi-billion-dollar brands face any kind of economic pressure, they just instantly push all of that financial risk straight down the supply chain, directly onto the world's absolute most vulnerable workers, basically leaving many without a dime for work they'd already finished. And what are they actually being paid when times are, normal? Less than 2%. Less than 2% of garment workers globally earn a living wage. No way, right? Despite this industry being worth over $1.5 trillion, the vast majority of workers in key production hubs are earning, on average, 45% less than what's required to just cover their family's basic needs.
And this relentless, non-stop pressure for speed and the lowest possible cost, it has deadly physical consequences. On April 24, 2013, the Rana Plaza garment factory building in Bangladesh collapsed. It killed 1,134 people and injured thousands more. The crazy part? The day before, large structural cracks were actually discovered in the building. But despite those glaring warnings, factory owners ordered the garment workers back inside the next day just so they could meet their production quotas. Today, it still stands as the deadliest industrial incident in the entire history of the garment industry, a really grim reality of prioritizing maximum efficiency over human life.
The human toll is absolutely staggering. But as we shift our focus to Part 3, the planetary drain, we're going to explore the immense environmental resources completely drained to feed this hyper-accelerated consumption model.
Now, what's really fascinating, and kind of terrifying, is the sheer scale of hidden water consumption. 2,700 liters. That is the amount of fresh water required to produce just one single conventional cotton t-shirt. To really put that into perspective for you, that is enough water to sustain one person's drinking requirements for 2.5 years. 2.5 years of drinking water for one shirt. And we're pouring this water onto thirsty crops in countries where fresh drinking water is, frankly, often already super scarce.
And the climate impact? Well, get ready for this. The global fashion industry is responsible for 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That actually exceeds all international aviation and maritime shipping combined. Literally, if our collective closet were a sovereign nation, it would be the world's third largest greenhouse gas emitter, sitting right there between the United States and India. And with the increasing reliance on cheap, virgin polyester, which, let's be honest, is essentially just wearing fossil fuels, these emissions are only going up.
So we extract massive amounts of water, we emit huge volumes of carbon, and we exploit human labor just to make these garments. And what do we actually do with them? That brings us to Part 4, mountains of fashion waste.
See, on average, fast fashion garments are discarded after just 7 to 10 wears. 7 to 10. This has created a catastrophic disposal crisis. Because the global north throws away so much clothing, we've basically created a system of waste colonialism, shipping millions of tons of discarded fashion right down to the global south. Two of the most infamous dumping grounds for this are the Cantamanto Market in Ghana and the Atacama Desert in Chile. In the Atacama, these illegal landfills of unsold synthetic Western clothes have grown so massive that high-resolution satellite imagery confirmed they are literally visible from space. Yeah, you heard that right, space.
And when we look closely at exactly what happens to these discarded synthetic clothes, the outcomes are pretty grim either way. Because they're mostly made of synthetic plastics like polyester, they don't just naturally decompose. If they go to open incineration, burning just 1 metric ton creates the carbon equivalent of 6 round-trip flights from London to New York, all while discharging highly toxic smoke and heavy metals into the air. But if they go to a landfill, dumping that same ton equals 8 round-trip flights, and it slowly leaches hazardous chemical dyes and microplastics directly into local groundwater systems. It's a lose-lose.
Globally, we're looking at 120 million tons of textile waste every single year. Just try to visualize that for a second. Imagine something we could call Mount Trendy, a hypothetical cone-shaped mountain made entirely out of just 1 year's worth of our discarded fashion. According to environmental data calculations, this mountain of clothes would reach a dizzying height of 18,074 feet. That is nearly a full kilometer taller than Mont Blanc, Europe's highest mountain, just from 1 year of our cast-offs.
So, faced with literal mountains of waste, toxic rivers, and deep human exploitation, we reach Part 5. Can the industry change? Like, is there actually a way to stop this systemic damage?
Well, the answer really lies in breaking that linear take-make-dispose model and fully embracing circular fashion. This basically involves 5 key steps: repair, reuse, resale, remake, and rental. By shifting our mindset from treating clothing as totally disposable to treating it as durable, the industry could actually unlock a $560 billion economic opportunity. A circular textile economy wouldn't just drastically reduce waste, it's projected to generate fibers worth over $50 billion and create around 180,000 new, sustainable jobs. So it's not just good for the planet, it's good business.
And the good news is, lawmakers are finally stepping in. A massive shift is coming to Europe. In July 2026, the EU's Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, or the ESBR for short, goes into full effect. This law is huge because it'll strictly prohibit large companies from just destroying their unsold clothes and footwear. Instead of sending pristine, completely unworn garments straight to an incinerator or a desert landfill, brands will be legally mandated to reuse, donate, or recycle them. It's a real game changer.
Which brings us right back to where we started, that $10 shirt, the rapid AI trends, the drained water, the underpaid women, the mountains of synthetic waste sitting in the desert. These are the hidden line items on your receipt. Let this final thought really sink in, and maybe forever rethink how you view your closet. The price tag tells you what you pay. It doesn't tell you what the world pays. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious, stay informed, and I'll catch you on the next one.